White men are the mental health problem in this country. Jim Crow, white men. Slavery, white men. Segregation, white men. Concentration camps for Asian Americans in the late 30s and early 40s. 1,800 people died. How many black people were hung from trees? 8,000. Let me guess. Oh yeah, once again, white men. The gun violence? 98% are men. 84% are white men, US citizens. I see a trend. How about the Middle Passage where 1.2 African Americans died? Oh yeah, once again, white men. Why was the Second Amendment written? Let me think. So black people couldn't have their freedoms. So the white men could once again control them. Who's in the White House? An adjudicated rapist, convicted felon white man. Wow, I see a trend. But somehow Americans are just begging to blame a trans person, a non-white person. See, what happened to George Floyd is symbolic of what's happening in this country. The white man putting his knee on the neck of a non-white person and sitting there in broad daylight with the balls to say, who's going to stop me? And that's what we're seeing right now. So that's the question that we need to ask ourselves as a fucking country. Who's going to stop them? Because I'm just one person here. Now, I don't know about you, but I got friends and family that are sitting behind the white privilege, and I want nothing to do with them. Not because of who they are, because their lack of action. Martin Luther King said, history is going to remember not the people that did bad things, but the good people that stood by and did nothing. Because once again, the white man is hiding behind their privilege while everybody else is getting treated like absolute fucking garbage. Because it doesn't affect me. You don't even want to go on a general strike to stop fascism. Oh, I can't work. Oh, I got a job. White man is the mental health crisis in the United States of America. It has been since day one. When you look at the majority of them, what do you see? A bunch of insecure little wannabe alpha males with small penises that need big trucks and guns to feel like a real man. That's the real problem, is toxic masculinity. That the white man feels unable to shit on everyone's rights just because of how they look. It's ironic, isn't it, that they demonize black people because they're black on the outside, and yet their hearts are black on the inside. Isn't that ironic? And every single time we see a mass shooting, they're just salivating on the white supremacist red hatters to say, oh my gosh, it was an immigrant, it was a trans person, it was a gay people. 84% of gun violence is white men. But when it happens, like at the church the other day, what happens? Oh, thoughts and prayers. But what happened with the racist podcaster? Oh, they were just dying for it to be somebody on the left so they can just blame somebody else. A white man. The Catholic, the church yesterday, a white man, a white man, a white man, a white man, a white man. Ahmaud Arbery, guess what? 3 white men that chased out a black guy. Breonna Taylor, oh, a white cop. Again, and again, and again, and again, and again. It's the same demographic. White men are the problem in this fucking country. And until we address the real mental health epidemic, which is white supremacy, built on white men controlling people, because that's how this country was designed. For 21-year-old landowning white men to shit on everybody else. This country was designed to benefit my demographic, and that is not okay. That is the original sin of this country. And until we address it, we will never be a great country, and we haven't been a great country. And if you don't like that, then you can ship.
The only way the average white person can feel like they have any power in this world is by oppressing people who have less than them. These white people are not part of the 1%. They're not part of the ruling class or the elite rich. And they know this. They know they have no real power. But they're also aware that the elite set up a system that benefits them as well. So they take part in this system, despite having the same means as people of color, doing the same jobs and the same careers, making the same amount of money. The only way they can feel superior is by taking part in the oppression of people of color. Either that, or they're too stupid to realize that they're under the control of the 1% and they're just like us. So that's why when people of color talk about white privilege, the average white person gets so upset. I don't have any privilege. I don't come from a wealthy family. I had to work for everything that I have. They don't realize the system that was implemented by our masters is the very one giving them access to everything that they have in life. They feel oppressed by the ruling class, so they oppress others to feel powerful. And this is not to excuse the racism of white people. This is just to give you an understanding of why they are the way they are.
What's up, lovelies? Welcome back to another episode. I hope you are doing great and amazing wherever you are watching this video from. So before I start this episode, this video is for educational purposes only. So I came across these clips of these palm-colored people admitting the fact that majority of the palm-colored men in the United United States are doing the most negative things as compared to any other group of men in the United States, then later on, they always play the victim. I love the fact that right now they are seeing whatever is happening within their own communities. They are calling out whatever is happening within their own communities because they are so much tired of it. Before, they couldn't even accept that it's happening, but lately, being that they are tired of whatever is happening within their own community, I know this is the main reason as to why they are calling it out, so that they can probably end it. So guys, I want us to watch these episodes together. Kindly give the video a thumbs up and also subscribe if you're coming across this channel for the very first time, and credit belongs to the original creators of these clips and stitches.
The history of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies of what would become the United States. Let's remember, during the colonial period, mid-1600s, there was no such thing as white people. I know some people who are now called white find that shocking, right? Because they think whiteness is real, right? But whiteness was created. Europeans didn't call themselves white. We didn't call ourselves white. We weren't all members of one big happy family. Are you kidding? Have you studied the history of Europe? The history of Europe was about killing each other. That's what we did in Europe. We just killed each other before we figured out there were other people to kill. We just killed each other, right? I mean, that was the history of Europe. The English hated the Irish, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians. The Germans hated everybody, and everybody hated their ass right back, right? There was no team called white, no race called white, but all of a sudden, in the middle of the 1600s, there was. Why? Why was it suddenly necessary to create this thing called the white race? Well, because rich people can count, that's why. And so rich folks looked around, the ones that owned all the land, you know, in the colonies, the colonial elite looked around and they realized something, that they were heavily outnumbered by African enslaved folks, by European indentured servants who were just one level above a slave, or other Europeans who weren't technically indentured servants, but they were still peasants, didn't have any money, didn't have any land, and they could do the math. They added it up and they were like, damn, we got to figure out a way to split these folks apart from one another, or they're going to rise up and take our stuff, right? Because after a while, these black folks who were enslaved Africans and these quote unquote white folks who were poor Europeans are going to figure out they're all getting played by these rich people, right? So ultimately the rich figure out they got to come up with some way to get somebody in that group on their team. The easiest thing is to get the poor Europeans, right? Because at least they look like you. They sort of share some of the customs and the culture. So they all of a sudden create this thing called whiteness and they say, now you're part of the club. Now we're going to let you testify in court, enter into contracts, vote, at least if you're a man, own a little bit of land, at least if you're a man, right? And we're going to get rid of indentured servitude. No more of that, because you're too good for that. And we're going to take the white men, now called white men, and put them on the slave patrol to keep black people in line. Give them a horse and a gun and a badge and make them feel big and powerful, right? They're still poor. They still don't have anything. They didn't pay the slave patrol well, right? Just exploited them, used them as a buffer between the elite and the other poor folks, particularly poor folks of color. And pretty soon the rebellions that occasionally happened where black and white got together to overthrow the elite, those stopped because the divide and conquer had begun to work, right? You could turn people against each other by telling those poor white folks, they got to keep these black people in line. And so that divide and conquer gets initiated in the colonies. Rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. Fast forward to the Civil War era. And you have, I'm from the South, right? My people, the elite in my part of the country, right, actually announced that the reason they wanted to break away from the Union and possibly go to war with their brothers and sisters to the North was in order to maintain slavery and white supremacy. They said that at the time. We lie about it now. And we say it had nothing to do with that. But of course, at the time, they didn't have any shame about it, so they just said it openly. Right? The vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens, said that the cornerstone of the new government was the great truth that the Negro was not the equal of the white man. So that's the reason the Confederacy was formed and existed. But here's the trick. If I'm rich and I want to go to war to protect my ownership in other human beings, my property, but you're poor and you don't own any enslaved people, why the hell would you go fight to protect my stuff? Because I'm a rich person. I'm not going to fight. Rich people don't go to war. Right? Rich people get poor people to go to war for them, whether it's in 1860 or whether it's during the 1960s or whether it's today, right? Rich folks get doctors to write notes for them that say that they have heel spurs, and that's why they can't go to Vietnam. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, you can Google that shit because he's sitting in the White House right now, right? Oh, I can't go fight. I have heel spurs. Send some poor kids to do that for me, please, right? So that's been a long-standing tradition. So the rich have to figure out a way to convince the poor to go fight for them. But that's a hard thing. That's like a hard sell, right? Like, how the hell, why would you do that? Why would you go fight to protect my property rights when you don't own anything? The only way you would do it is if that rich person comes to you and says, hey, listen, you gotta go fight because we gotta maintain our way of life, because if these people get free, they're gonna take your jobs. No, fool, they already got your job. That's how it works, right? Because if I'm white and I gotta charge you $1 a day to work on the farm, but you can get a black person to do it for nothing because you own them, guess who got the job? Free got the job. Right? So in a sense, poor white folks would have been better off joining with black folks to overthrow the slave system. That would have raised the wage floor of all working people. But they got tricked by rich white men telling them that their enemies were black and brown. Fast forward to the 1930s. And you have white labor leaders. They're not even the elite, right? The labor leaders are not the elite, but they're the elite within the labor movement. And even they had fallen for it at this point. So they didn't want to integrate their unions. And they would say things like, well, we can't have black people and Mexicans and Chinese folks in our unions because if we do that, it's going to reduce the professionalism of our craft. We have to maintain the integrity of our profession. No, fool, you need more people in the damn union is what you need. And if you don't let those folks in, guess what happens when you go out on strike? Who is the boss going to use to replace you? They're going to replace you with the very same black and brown folks that you didn't want to work next to, right? And so at the end of and then you're going to blame them for taking your job rather than the white rich dude for giving it to them, right? Divide and conquer, telling not rich white folks that their enemies are black and brown. And now we fast forward to the president. We got the president of the United States becoming president on the basis of that same rhetoric, telling not rich white folks that the reason they don't have a job is because Mexicans took them.
America has been able to prove statistically since at least the early 90s that young white men are the most violent demographic in our country. They are the most likely to commit acts of mass violence. They are the most likely to be family annihilators. And they're also the most likely to be radicalized. And we've known this reliably, statistically, since the early 90s. And we have done nothing with this information. We have tried for zero solutions to this problem with catastrophic consequences. The violence is only going to get worse until we address the fact that mainstream young white male conservatism today looks more like a Hitler Youth rally than the republicanism of our grandfathers. And we have decided as a culture that we don't care. And we are unwilling to address this demographic problem. And until we start coming up with solutions, we are going to continue to be under assault by young white men who kill multiple people at a time in mass shootings. And that's just, it is what it is.
Can someone please explain to me why conservative white men feel they are under attack in the United States? Because the last time I checked, every single U.S. president has been a man. Only one of those men has been a man of color. White men have never been enslaved in this country. White men have never been denied their right to vote in this country, nor has that ever been on the fucking table. Just because people want the same rights that you've always had doesn't mean that you're the victim.
All right, lovelies, welcome back. You know, lately, a lot has been happening in the United States to a point that people are living scary lives, and yet the group that is doing all this, some of them still doesn't want to admit that they're the ones who did it. For instance, the unalivings happening in the United States are being done by some groups of people. Then they consider Black people to be a threat, to be bad people, to be evil, and yet their own community, they don't even check out whatever is happening there. So when I come across the clips of these palm-colored people admitting that this is what is happening within their own community, I felt so happy because at least these people are seeing that, yes, it's happening, but no one really wants to talk about it. And they decided to use their voice to call out whatever is happening within their own community. Because for quite a long period of time, these people have always considered my own people to be a threat to them. Now they are seeing that their very own people are doing some of the negative things that they expected that is only black people who can do it. For instance, you remember when CK was unalived, what these people started saying before the alleged assassinator of the CK was identified, they said that the black people have created a civil war and now it's time for them to fight, because they thought that perhaps it's a black person who unalived CK. When they came to realize that it's their very own who did this, in fact, from a red state and also a Republican who did this, you know, this issue of civil war stopped from nowhere. And to my surprise, these people came together, these palm-colored people came together from the United States, from the UK, and some parts of the European countries to support that the civil war should start, because they were thinking that it's the black people who did that. And as if that's enough, whatever happened in a church in the United States, that veteran, the palm-colored veteran who drove there, unalived people, and even set the church on fire. If it was a black person, what do you think would have happened in the United States? Because these people, for quite a long period of time, they have been trying to rage bait the black folks. Then they play the victims. You know, it's always good to take accountability of whatever you have done, rather than playing the victim that, you know, is the other person who did it. And you know very well that deep inside you are the one who did it. I came to realize that majority of these palm-colored people, they know exactly what they are doing, but they really don't want to take accountability. I don't know how it's always feel for them, or the weight that accountability has in them that they can't carry. You know, you better admit that you are the one who did wrong than playing the victim all along, so that the other person can feel so much like oppressed. Because, you know, lately, the palm-colored people are also being oppressed in the United States. They thought that oppression is also only meant for the black people. Nowadays, they are also being oppressed by their very own people. In fact, the middle class and the lower class people are feeling it a lot more than the upper class palm-colored people are feeling it. And minus that, all these unalivings happening in the United States, the one that happened at Delta State University, they unalived one black man. Then they said that no, it's the black man who did it by himself, who hanged himself on a tree. And yet, it was these people who did it. When they unalived George Floyd, what did they say? And they have unalived so many people. Ryan Hinton Jr., what did they say? Because I'm just trying to consider that if it was a black person who did all these things, this person would have been right now in jail and could have been charged a lot. If you go to prison, what's happening there? The lynchings happening, the police brutality. They are doing this to black people. I don't know, they want to do away with the black population in the United States so that it can be their own state. Like, they want to make America white instead of the land of all people. Plus, these people, the palm-colored people, they are so scared of losing power. They're so scared of becoming the minority, because they know right now the world has seen whatever they are doing. The world knows them, and probably they might become the minority, or they might lose power. When Obama became the president of the United States, these people felt so triggered and started saying that Obama was going to oppress them, because they know very well that all along they have been oppressing black people, because it's their very own who is sitting in the White House. And these palm-colored people who are using their voices to call out whatever is happening in their own community. We see you, and please continue doing whatever you are doing, because even after doing that, you know, they always receive threats that why are you admitting whatever is happening within our own community? This automatically tells you that these people, they just want to play victim, and some of the things they are learning from their own people. They're not born with, for instance, racism. There is no one born with the racism. They're just learning it from other people. Then again, these people, instead of deconstructing from white supremacy, from racism, from fascism, they're just there. They're praising themselves that they are the superior, and then considering other people to be so inferior. And when there is a problem, they always want the Black people to come out and help them, to come out and lead them in the protest, because they want that Black body so bad. They want to unalive them. They want to do away with them. And that's why they wanted to start deporting some of their FBAs. Whatever happened in Chicago, you saw it. I don't know if this orange man is going to deport the Black people to which country, because they are the indigenous people of the United States. That is their land. America was built on the backs of the Black people. If you happen to deport them right now, to which country? Or you are going to deport them to the same United States? You know, some people always need to think first before they act, because these things later on might cause them problems which they really don't know. I know they don't want Black people in the United States, but what if right now all the Black people in the United States have decided that, well, let us all buy a land somewhere, then we uh, flee United States to that land and leave America for them? Do you think America will be the America we know right now? It won't be that. In fact, there will be a lot of regrets. They will start requesting Black people to go back to the United States. I really know whatever will happen. So instead of disrespecting the Black people right now, instead of doing all these evil things to the Black people, they should start treating them as normal people, as the people who reside in the United States, as the owners of the United States, not as immigrants, not as thieves, not as bad people. Because the more they continue treating the Black people the way they want, the more Black people will be resting for all those years that they want. Because after election, they say that, well, we will be resting. And the rest of Black people, resting of Black people is really triggering these people. The silence of Black people is triggering them. So I really don't know what these people want. When Black people lead them in the protest or use their voices, they always say that Black people are so loud. When Black people are silent, they always say that Black people are silent. Like, what do they really want? Like, let's make it make sense, because I don't understand what these people want. Do they want Black people to do only what they want, to be manipulated by them? Like, they just want to manipulate Black people, to abuse Black people, to control them the way they want, and Black people should not be using their voices? Or what do they really want? Because I really don't understand it. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this. Do you agree with whatever these palm colored people said, or they were just trying to rage bait the Black people? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. I really appreciate your massive love and support. I'm your presenter, Judy. Let's keep the conversation going. We learn from each other. Until next time, let's meet on my next episode. Peace and love.